Welcome to Momentum's virtual training series, where we invite expert facilitators to share their knowledge on topics that advance women in leadership.
Welcome, everyone, to Momentum 2026. We are so excited to get started today. Thank you, Lisa, for being here. Like I said, if you have just joined on, Lisa Schuck has been with us for quite a long time now, haven't you, Lisa? Helping us define who we are, how we want to be branded, how we want to say what we do, and be very articulate, even in our wording for our websites. And Lisa's just wonderful at that. She's just very gifted. And so having her here kicking us off 2026, how you can shift how you perceive things and make it more powerful and more positive. She is going to be sharing all that with us today. So Lisa, I'm going to kick it off to you and let you get us started.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. This presentation is Shift Happens, and it's all about perspective and who you're becoming and giving you some tools and skill sets and behaviors that you can use in 2026 to become more of who you want to be. If you're looking for more of goal-oriented time management type, which we will talk about goals and such in this today, but specifics for that, I did a virtual training for Momentum last January, and you can go back on the Momentum website and take a look at that as well. But with that, we're going to get started. This is interactive. Yes, so I don't necessarily have to see your face, but I do want to utilize chat. So there will be times where I ask you to drop something in chat. You can also ask questions that way, and Lindsay and Darla will make sure that I see them because chat's flying pretty fast over here from me right now. And feel free to do that at any time in the presentation. Everyone will receive a copy of this presentation if you want it. So Darla will send out a link. You guys will be able to access it so you can have that. So know that from the very beginning. If you're trying to fast and furiously take notes or take a screenshot of a slide, don't worry, you can have a copy of it. The only thing I need you to have is a piece of paper and a writing utensil. So with that, I am going to share my screen. And are we good, Darla, with me sharing the screen? All good? Okay, here we go. Today isn't about resolutions you won't remember in February. It is about who you are becoming and who you want to become. This year's Momentum Conference, which Darla mentioned, is all about leading with courage and clarity. Today, I want to use those terms as two levers for living an intentional life. You can shift the direction of your life with goals or intentions led by your identity. And I believe that leading with intentions really equate to small shifts or steps that help us become the women and men we want to become, not just achievers of goals. Goals are important, but I dare say our identity and the intentions that emerge from that are really what can truly change our life. James Clear, the writer of Atomic Habits and author of a fabulous newsletter entitled 321, I highly recommend everyone subscribe to it, says you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your identity. It's important to define who you are and who you want to become because identity is the engine that sustains courage, which is action, and clarity, which is direction. Small, well-placed actions can create exponential momentum. Big life shifts come from tiny, repeated choices based on a clear direction that you and only you can set for your life. James Clear on the Shane Parrish podcast talked about how every year we set goals like we're going to lose 20 pounds, or I'm going to exercise more, I'm going to run a marathon, or I'm going to change jobs. And for most people, they never achieve what they set out to achieve. In fact, 2 days from now, January 9th, is known as Quitter's Day, the day most people's energy ebbs towards whatever resolution or goal they set in the midst of their New Year's enthusiasm. There are multiple other reasons why we don't achieve the goals we set. But instead of talking about how to set and achieve our goals today, I really want us to focus on our identity, who we are becoming. We're going to talk about identity-based habits, getting clear on the person you want to become, how to use the domino effect to reinforce in a positive way, and then some skills and behaviors you can put in place to support your courageous life. You'll leave with an identity statement, courageous domino effect steps, and some tested habits and management skills and behaviors to help you get past this Friday of Quitter's Day with the ideas you generate. All right, let's do this. Here we go. I do want to say that this shift for me began a year or so ago when the executive coach that I work with kept asking me, okay, yeah, that's a great goal. Yes, doing that's a great goal. Yes, visiting every continent in your life is great. But who do you want to be? Like, who do you want to be? From this simple question that I was asked repeatedly, in no small part because I had a mindset block, which I think many of us have, that we need to have these big, large aspirational goals, or we have to set forth, this is what I want to achieve this year. Yes, we need to have goals, but more importantly, I think we need to understand who we are and who we want to be. And by identifying that, we will have more clarity on how we live. And we'll have infinitely more courage to take action on whatever goal we set because we know that this is who we are. From a psychology perspective, it's also been proven that identity-based habits outperform goal-based habits. Hello, Quitter's Day. And something interesting I listened to on a podcast was a psychologist speaking to the fact that women under stress, and who of us is not under stress on any given day, tend to prioritize our roles, i.e., I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm an employee, over our identity. In no small part because we haven't identified who we are outside of a specific role. This is actually one of the reasons some women have such a hard time when they become empty nesters. They haven't established an identity outside of their role as a mother, and so they don't know what to do. So that leads me to ask, who are you becoming? Let me give you a few examples of some identity words. For example, calm, intentional, bold, influential, grounded, joyful, strategic, positive, courageous, interjected, thoughtful, empathetic. I'd like for you to take a minute and begin to define who you want to become more of in 2026. To do that, we're going to do a little exercise. I'd like for you to choose 3 identity words that describe who you want to be. And then I want you to write a sentence or two as if it is already true. I'm going to give you an example. Don't worry. Here we go. Are you ready? Here are a couple of examples. The last one is actually one of my identity goals for 2026. I want to be more focused on my health. So I am in becoming, this is a positive, and we're going to state it as if it's already true. I am a woman focused on her health and what I ingest physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So that means to me, not only what I put in my body from a food standpoint, but if I want to be focused on my health physically, then probably need to move my body, right? There's a little goal. how I react emotionally. And if I'm focused on what I ingest mentally, I already don't read or watch the news on a regular basis because of what it does to my mental health. But what other choices can I make to be mentally healthy? Read books, have more bigger discussions with others on big subjects, perhaps, or focus my food on brain healthy choices. In other words, my goals come from my intention of who I want to become. If my intention is to be healthy, then I should choose to exercise or move my body on a regular basis to be that person. I can then set goals to help live into that identity of who I want to be. See how your identity shapes your actions and choices? I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes, and I'd like for you to spend some time writing at least one sentence that describes what you want your identity to become. This gives you so much clarity because it becomes your North Star of being. So take about 3 minutes. I want you to write a sentence, and I want it to be like as if it's already happened. There's a couple of examples on your screen. And then, even if you just come up with a couple of intention words, I want to be more courageous. I want to be more confident. I want to be whatever it is. And then drop those in the chat and let's spend a minute or two talking about that. So I wish I could play like the Jeopardy music or something, but I'm going to stop my screen share. There we go. And start dropping them in the chat. Who do you want to be? What do you want to become? Drop your intention statement. I am a woman who is bold and confident in the decisions I make. What would that look like? I am a woman who is creative. What would that look like? What types of goals would come out of setting those intentions? I'm a woman who is joyful and able to see what is good in life because I focus on the simplicity of what I need. Tressie, can I steal that? That's fabulous. I am becoming a listener who is ready to hear even a still small voice speaking to me. I may need that one too. Listening is a skill I could improve. I am a woman who stands strong and calm in the face of adversity. Joey, I love that. I am a woman that is peaceful and brings peace to my family. Deanna. See how by setting these intention statements of who you are, you can then, when things happen, you reaffirm who you are with your statement. And you can make decisions based on that. Does this play into who I am becoming? I am a woman courageous enough to be unapologetically me. I'm a woman who is confident in my work. Oh, group of 6 here. All right, Tara, I see you. Present, paced, intentional, joyful, calm, empathetic, consistent, hopeful. Oh, hey, Tiffany. I am a woman who is, wait, I'm going to scroll too fast, who is intentional with her time and deeply present for her life. That'll help you make decisions on what you do each and every day. Guys, these are great. I am a community builder who creates safe spaces for neighbors. That's beautiful, Sonia. This is so good. I'm a woman who is happy, loving, and whole. And see, you can define what that means for you, right? Because words have meaning and different words mean different things to different people. But by making this statement of who you are becoming and saying it to yourself, I have mine on a sticky note, actually on my desk. And I probably should put it on my bathroom mirror as well. Because when you are faced with choices that we all have every day or setting goals, throwing that up against who you want to be, that can impact your choices. I'm a woman who is organized and have chosen to be proactive. I love being proactive. I'm becoming a woman who is confident, intentional leader who prioritizes people and create meaningful connections to fulfill a common goal. Oh, guys, this is great. Y'all, these are beautiful. Beautiful. Well done. Look at all of us becoming. Yeah, yes. All right. I am becoming a woman who is focused and disciplined, creating space for what truly matters in my life. Oh, that'll impact decisions, Stephanie. So, do we see how who you are becoming, making this statement, makes just an incredible difference? Love it. Not letting my past define me. Veronica, I like that a lot. A lot. This is so good. Y'all did great. All right. Hold on to who you are becoming in that intention statement, because we are going to move into the next phase and we'll come back to those statements. Okay. I do want at the end, you guys will get my email and my cell phone number on the last slide. You want me to cheer you on? You send me a text and put your intention statement in there. We'll become friends. All right, here we go. All right. We have begun to develop clarity on who we want to become. And in doing so, our identity words will support the choices we make. Now, let's move on to how we take positive actions on our identity when our natural bias is to be negative or quit. Now, I'd like to take a minute and ask you to describe what you see on this slide. What do you guys see on this slide? I can no longer see chat, so somebody else is going to have to read words to me.
A green dot.
A green dot, a circle, a spot. That's what we see. Interestingly, you probably wouldn't mention the vast white space surrounding the dot, because your mind goes straight to the tiny flaw and it becomes the defining feature of the entire slide. Why is that? It's called the domino effect. Our minds fixate on the negative while ignoring everything else. This is a very simple illustration of the cognitive blind spot, which is called the domino mindset, which is, in terms we understand, overgeneralization. It means taking one small, teensy-weensy event and letting your mind make sweeping conclusions, typically skewed towards the negative, is what we do. An example. That conversation was really awkward. I don't know about you, but I have awkward conversations every day. But overgeneralization, the domino mindset, you go from there to everyone thinks I'm weird, to I'm such an awkward person. I'll never have good relationships. Now, that's a very simple, vast generalization of what overgeneralization looks like. But we all do this in our minds every day. What if we flipped this? Okay. So instead of ascribing a negative word to ourselves, instead of moving, okay, into the positive, we need to reframe or review when other situations in a conversation weren't awkward. Because every conversation you have every day is not awkward. It was just one. And I bet you have more than one conversation every day. This example makes the green dot negative instead of looking at the vast white space, and the cascade that tends to happen is negative instead of positive. And what I want us to work on is flipping from negative to positive. Now, I am going to tell you that this is at the core of brain psychology. It's called the reptilian effect. Reptilian. It's the reptile effect, basically. And what that means is our brain is designed to do two things every day: conserve calories and survive and thrive. That is it. That is what our brain is designed to do. And it is going to protect you from doing anything else, which is why when anything happens, we immediately go to, okay, I need to stop doing that. Okay. It's the very core basis of human nature. We can flip this, though. We can flip it on its head. It just takes a little bit of top of mind awareness and ongoing reinforcement. Here's an example. One way to stop the domino effect and the whole negative, which is what we tend to do, and continue to live into our intention, is to shift words and phrases we use from negative to positive. How many of us use the phrase, what's the worst that can happen? Which in and of itself is negative. I watch a woman named Cinda Bomershine on YouTube. She and her family are circumnavigating the U.S. Actually, they have finished now on a boat, people, with her husband and 2 kids. She has practiced this line so much that it is now second nature to her. And trust me, on a boat with a family, there are plenty of worst case scenarios and things that happen each and every day. Bringing our language focus from negative to positive also changes our mindset. Like I said this to Lindsay before we hopped on this call. We were just chatting. And I said, like flipping from saying what's the worst that can happen to what's the best that can happen. Just saying that puts a smile on your face, right? It's from negative to positive. It changes our mindset. So, and we have to practice since it's not our core human nature. My husband and I have actually started saying this to each other. And if I say or he says, what's the worst that can happen? The other immediately pipes in with, well, what's the best that can happen? It immediately changes the energy. I smile when I say it because I know it makes me feel better. Also, another sticky note on my computer. Domino effect. Julie Smith, a psychologist, reminds us that every day, all of these little things we stack up, all of these small actions, you meet a deadline, you remember a friend's birthday, you make it to work, not only on time, but 30 minutes early, you got everything done on your checklist, but then one small thing goes wrong. And in your mind, you write off the whole day. We go to that negative dot instead of reminding ourselves about the positive. But what if we flipped it to be positive? What if we use the activation energy of an event for positive instead of negative? Stopping the escalation and the overgeneralization. What would have to be true to make this happen? What if we used it for the positive? Setting up or naming the dominoes that move you forward towards who you want to become each day. Or on days when negative does come into play, you can pull out the positive dominoes you have in place that you live into what is the best that can happen and give yourself positive reinforcement. This is why this is important. Most people set goals and resolutions at the mountaintop level. I'm going to run a marathon. But the people who actually change their lives choose the first stone on the trail. What's the first step? Let's go back to that identity statement you wrote earlier. Told you these would come back. And or the 3 words you chose on who you want to move towards becoming in 2026. Now let's think about some dominoes that we can activate on that will move us forward consistently. For instance, if we use my intention for 2026 on who I want to become, some dominoes I can stack would be adding positive quotes on my home screen, or moving my body a minimum of 15 minutes a day, or having one brave conversation in quarter 1. These all help me live into who I want to become. I'm not calling them goals per se, because I'm living into them as intentions that support who I want to become long term. Make sense? So, what I want you to do is I want you to take just a minute and I want you to drop in the chat, give me one positive domino that you can begin to stack, or two that will help you and support you on your journey of living into who you want to become. Elizabeth, this is so me. What I think every time I leave a networking event on the awkward conversation, absolutely, I do the same thing. I'm like, oof, that was so painful. Flip the script. All right, who's got being more intentional about you? Do one thing I enjoy by myself in quiet per day. Think of how that helps you move forward. I have the positive. You do? Yes, positive quotes. What was it that Zig Ziglar said? Motivation doesn't last, neither do showers. That's why we bathe daily. Was that it? Something like that. Like, you have to reinforce the positive. Reading and ensure I eat well and move my body. Yes. Be consistent with food. No insecurities. Register for a strategic thinking. This is so great. Yes. Be intentional with positive words. Say something positive about yourself daily. Yes. Creating a you go girl list. That's genius. Absolutely. Creating a routine that can be done consistently. Yes. Sonia, I love that. A 2-minute people check-in or one thoughtful text or voice note. I love that. Speak positive to myself. By the way, that is very, very, very important, to give yourself grace and speak positive affirmation. Mentally practice, prepare for hard conversations. Absolutely. So good, guys.
Lisa, I wanted to share real quick. One of my friends she just retired. So she's starting out 2026 and she's been a professor, and she now has time, and it's not even a goal. She said, I want this to become something that I do throughout my life. So it aligns with what you're saying, that she said, I just want to sit in calmness throughout the week in different pockets, and ask God to show me, who do I need to write a letter to? And she said, because I know how much that means to me to receive a handwritten, mailed with a stamp letter and get it. And someone has said something about how I impacted their life. And she said, I want to make sure I do that every week. And I thought that was so cool. And she said, now I have a chance to go back and tell people what they did for me, and it be sincere and genuine. And I love that.
I love that. And it's something she can do. And it's not just a goal. Like, she could have set
Right.
out a goal that said, I'm going to write one handwritten letter every week. At the end of the year, I'm going to have 52 handwritten notes.
Right.
Right. And that's great. And that's a great goal. But it's more of her identity. We see this is a great example of the difference between goal-based habits and identity-based habits. And that could have been a goal. I'm going to write 52 note every week. But instead, she's saying, I want this to be who I am. It's an identity-based habit. So this is just what I do.
Core values are, what your core values are. Like what you said earlier, not just those 3 words, but what is your core values and how is that going to align with what you really want to become?
Absolutely. Okay, guys, we've defined who we want to become in 2026 by crafting an identity or intention sentence, or we have 3 identity words. And we've leaned and learned that move into being that we need to lean into positivity and not overgeneralization. So by flipping the domino effect from negative to positive, we can build small dominoes that move us forward. And highlighting these positive moments instead of the negative, we will also use the statement, what's the best that can happen? Now we are going to move into energy, activation energy, right? So, courageous dominoes. What is one action small enough to do daily, weekly? Write a handwritten note that would move you towards who you want to be in 2026? What is the smallest version of that action? And what is the courageous version of that action? And before we do that, I want to give an example. I want to make sure. Yeah, here we go. So, in line with the domino effect, we can count on a couple of other psychological biases, because heaven knows we got a bunch of them, to help us move forward with our intentional identity. Okay. Activation energy, which is the smallest first step, increases the likelihood of starting. And this is the example I want to give you. James Clear gives the example of one of his readers who told him that he had lost 100 pounds and kept it off. But listen to how he started. He didn't dive into some crazy diet or say, I'm never eating a carb again. He set his identity as someone who is healthy. But get this, his first step, smallest first step, was he went to the gym for 5 minutes per day. Yep. He only allowed himself to stay for 5 minutes. Can I have that gym program, please? What he realized, what this individual realized, was he had to activate on the smallest step. And this is where I think sometimes we get hung up, which is why I wanted to give this example. For this guy, his smallest step was getting into the habit of actually driving to the gym and walking into it. Like, he couldn't even get to the getting on the equipment. He just had to take the step of actually driving to the gym and walking in. And I get this. If you have a negative or a poor self image and you walked into a gym and you try to dive into some workout or try and run a mile on the treadmill, you're starting midway through. You got to get to the gym first consistently before you can take the next step, which is actually working out. He built up slowly, like he spent 5 minutes in the gym. Then he walked on the treadmill for 15 minutes. That's all. Again, he was developing the habit, but living into his intention of who he wanted to be. Another psychological bias that does help us is the commitment bias. Once we start something, we like to stay consistent. And consistency wins over intensity every time. Okay. For example, it isn't the intensity of running a marathon, it is the consistency of getting up every single day and running some distance that makes you identify as a runner, that then gives you the ability to run a marathon, right? It's just a shift. It's a shift in mindsets. We're shifting to the positive. We have to do something that supports us, but we also have to think through, what is it that we want to become, and what's that consistent action that leads us toward living into that intention. For me, this completely shifted in the past year or two how I look at making decisions. Because when you have an intention of who you want to be and something happens, you go, does that really fit into what I am trying to become? And if it doesn't, it's infinitely easier to say no. Okay. We do have to think about what happens when the negative does happen. And it will happen. Inevitably, it will happen. So I want us to think about implementation intentions. We want to set ourselves up for success by thinking through what we do when we fail, or when there is a setback or a negative action occurs. If we have a solution, we've already thought through that, we are much more likely to not spiral into a negative overgeneralization. And instead, quickly, we can move back into our positive identity of who we are becoming and the intention that goes with it. We wrote our identity statement or chose our words. We wrote sort of what that looks like. Now, I want us to write an implementation intention that puts us back on track when we might veer off to the side. Okay. For instance, just taking my earlier, I'm a healthy woman, physically, spiritually, etc., means that choices that I make are to exercise or move my body in some way during the day. There are also plenty of days, yesterday was one of them for me, that will not happen. I sat in this chair at this desk, starting with an 8 o'clock call, and other than running up and down the stairs to get lunch, I was here till about 6, right? Moving my body did not happen. But if I have an intention statement, an implementation intention that says, if I do not move my body one day, then I will, one, you'll forgive yourself and give grace, right? But what is that statement? For me, it's if I miss a day of movement, I will consider it a rest day because we all need rest and prioritize moving tomorrow. I'm not beating myself up. I'm saying, hey, life happens. And tomorrow, my choice will be to make sure that this happens. Because if I'm clear on who I want to be, I can live into that identity knowing it is the consistency that matters, not the intensity. Okay. Does that make sense? Now, I did do like a little 10-minute stretch thing before bed, and I counted that as my movement for the day, which is great. It's not what I intended to do, but it still sort of fell into holding myself accountable for who I want to become. Okay. So, really quickly, I want you to write your implementation intention. If I am, for example, if you want to be calm or you want to prepare for hard conversations, Joey, I'm using yours because this is the one I can see in my chat. If I walk into a hard conversation unprepared or do not have time to prepare for the conversation, then I will instead dissect the conversation after it occurs because you can still learn from that. You can still live into who you are with that, right? Those are the types of things that help us focus internally on the things that we need to do externally to support us as we are becoming, right? Okay. If I'm unable, go ahead, Darla.
Someone had asked this and I see what they were saying because they said, so then actually we need to ask what is the worst that will happen. But I wanted to, it depends on I don't think it needs to be coming from a negative, oh my gosh, what's worse that can happen. It needs to come from like what you said. Okay, it's an awareness that this could happen. How am I going to have a mindset that's going to handle the tough things? Not so much about, oh my gosh, everything's going to go wrong, but oh, I'm doing everything I can. I am looking at the good side. I am preparing. And the reality is, if there's a glitch, this is how I'm going to handle it. And kind of have that mindset awareness ahead of time.
If you have it, all right, I love what Laura said. If I am unable to get some quiet time one day, then I'll be grateful for the time I had to interact and potentially influence others, right? She's not beating herself up because she didn't get her quiet time that day. She's going, you know what? Instead, I'm really grateful that I was able to interact with whatever stopped her from having her quiet time that day. And potentially, I said something that was helpful to them, right? If I become overwhelmed, I will give myself permission to pause. It's really about granting yourself some grace, right? Tracy, exactly. That's exactly it, what you said, because you're the one that asked the question, I think. If I have a bad day when nothing seems to be going right, then I will find a quiet place and reset my brain by focusing on what is actually good in my life. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It is a mindset shift, but you've got to be prepared for what happens when life throws you a curveball. And if you think through some of those potential scenarios and have language around that, you'll be better equipped to deal with it and it won't get you off track. Yes. I will celebrate small wins, pat myself on the back, and say out loud, good job, Lisa. Try again tomorrow. I should write that one down. Gratefulness is everything. Yes. Perfect. It's just a mindset shift. But I got to keep going because she's going to cut me off in a second. And I want to get to what I have. Skills for living into becoming. All right, here we go. Part of what you do when you lean into who you want to become is that there are things you will want to do differently than you do now. And with doing things differently, there comes fear of change, fear of the unknown, anxiety about what might happen. Mel Robbins has the 5-second rule of counting from 5 down to 1 and then like just doing. So instead of staying in the bed in the morning, she says 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and she just hops out of bed. Simple example, but you get the idea. The 10-second courage window is much the same, but it's about feeling the fear and doing it into anyway. You want to do something. You want to ask a question in a meeting. Your intention is to be bold and confident. And you know that to do that, you're going to have to be more vocal in meetings. You get nervous. What if no one understands what you're trying to ask? What if they think it's a stupid question? Negative. The 10-second courage window says deep breath, and within 10 seconds, raise your hand and ask the question. It works because it interrupts your fear-based mental loops. And once you've done it once, you know you can do it. I love this phrase because it builds micro bravery. Isn't that a great word? Micro bravery. I love that. It's the small steps that build consistency. Fear, fuel, reframe. Here, this one's a little deeper, and I want you all to think about it. If you're feeling fear about living into your identity, and by the way, if you're not feeling at least a little fear at some point of living into whatever identity you have decided you want to become, you should probably go a little deeper. Ask yourself, what is this fear protecting? And what does this fear say about what I deeply care about? Fear reveals priorities. I'll tell you a quick story. My husband and I ride bikes. When we were newly married, we were going to go on a bike ride. Hadn't been on a bike ride in a while. I was a little nervous and I wanted to ride on a flat. I wanted to be flat, no hills. There was a hill. After he assured me there was no hills. And it wasn't a little hill, right? It was a hill, right? I literally said to him, he will tell the story. I literally looked at him and it was like, are you stupid? Are you just a liar? Right? But it had nothing to do with that. Okay. It had to do with my own fear of failure, because really the only reason I didn't want to go up a hill at that point is because I wasn't confident I could manage my bike gears in a way that would allow me to get up a hill and not have to get off my bike in front of like my new husband. And, we're still like newlyweds and right. It had nothing to do with the fact that there was a hill. It had everything to do with my inner insecurity and lack of confidence. And I give you that example, which I know is a really basic example, and you can all laugh at me about it. But a lot of times we have a fear about living into someone we want to be. And we don't acknowledge what that is, what the inner actual fear is. I need you to do that. If you're going to live into who you want to be, there's going to be some fear involved because there's going to be some change involved. And whenever there's change involved, there is fear. So understanding it and living into it is where you're going to truly grow into your being. And it takes courage to acknowledge fear. And fear, for the record, means false evidence appearing real. Again, it's a negative bias. You have no data to support your fear most of the time. Because human nature is to go negative, we immediately assume the negative. Okay. As you move into becoming, living into your identity statement and the words and everything, which I'm so excited because y'all wrote some great statements. I encourage you to create a momentum log. And I did not choose that word for momentum, although it works. A lot of you may keep a gratitude journal or at least work on a daily gratitude practice. And if you don't do that, I encourage you to do that as well. But I'm pretty good at acknowledging and being thankful at something I do every day. I mean, I think about it when I wake up in the morning. I do that, right? But when I start something new or live into intentions, keeping a momentum log is, for me, life-changing. Because writing down one courageous thing I did today was blank. It could be very simple, right? I'm working on building out a newsletter and a podcast. And I'm trying not to stress about it. This is a side, sort of. I just want to empower and encourage women. But each day, taking one step closer by doing one task that helps me make this happen. So at the end of the day, I write down one courageous thing I did today was reach out to Susie Smith about being on my podcast, right? And each and every time I do this and acknowledge the step I've taken, it moves me closer to accomplishing and living into my goal. It also supports my other intention, which is to encourage and empower women to lead enthusiastic lives. The momentum log builds evidence that you're doing what you set out to do, not in a goal-focused way necessarily, but in a consistent forward movement. It also reinforces your identity and who you are becoming, which is so much fun because you can look back at it and go, oh, wow, look at how far I've come. And it reduces the fear of stagnation. All right, it's our last little assignment. I would love for you to drop in the chat one courageous thing that you have done. I can't make it. There it goes. One courageous. Do your one courageous thing I did today was, and I understand it's only lunchtime, but everybody come up with what is one courageous thing that you have done already today. Committed to making hard changes. Yes, absolutely. Did you really apply for a new job today? Congratulations.
Yeah.
This training, this was courageous. Way to go, Stephanie. Really? Yay. Yay, you. Set a boundary with a relationship. You get a gold star, Lindsay. Decluttered a drawer in my closet. If you've seen my closet, that is a courageous thing. Journal for self-care. I'm so not a good journaler. You get well done. Had quiet time this morning. Rested without the need to feel guilty. Delegated tasks. Yeah. Well, y'all, these little things add up. Cardiac physical therapy that begins. Alex, way to go. New employee, onboarding, that takes so much. Focused on devotion before starting work. Yes, y'all, these little steps. Disagreed with my boss. That does take courage. Yes. It's the little things, guys, that build consistency that supports us moving into being. Heidi, hi, I see you. Gave myself grace for not getting all home tasks completed, which, by the way, a lot of us need to give grace to ourselves each and every day for so many of those things. Okay, guys, here's the deal. This is who I am. I'd like to support you all on your journey. You're welcome to shoot me an email with your intention statements to make it more real, or you can shoot me a text, give me a call. And here is my courageous moment for the day. I believe that becoming who we want to be is critical to our success, both personally and professionally. And I also believe that women have a hard time pondering just exactly who they want to become because we're so busy doing other things. So if you have a group at work or church or garden club that you believe this type of presentation or this presentation would help, I'd love to work with you in a small workshop setting, virtually or in person. Shoot me an email or a text. Let's connect. And as I said, I am working on a newsletter, which is really just sort of a way for me to hold myself accountable for being positive with my intentions, and sharing that with others. Not quite ready for prime time, but I'm getting there. But we'll put something in the link when you get the presentation. And if you want to sign up for it, I'd love to motivate you and encourage you along the way. With that, I am done, and I am so excited for everything that you all did today and how it is going to help you live into 2026, becoming who you want to be with courage and clarity. Thanks.
Wow, thank you so much. I want to say something really quick that Lisa had mentioned earlier about building the evidence when you write down your courageous things. We are so quick to say, oh, I did this wrong and I did that wrong. And that builds a negative evidence. And so what she's teaching us today is building that positive and courageous evidence that we overlook and we minimize in our life. I know I'm guilty of it. Like you said, Lisa, I can see all that white space, but I'll bring out and I'll think and I'll overthink that one green dot. And I just appreciate you helping us realign how our mindset can be and that it aligns with our values. It aligns with how we want to be a better person, a better leader, and have more momentum in our life. No pun on the word, but truly. That's why we chose the word. But I do want to thank you all for being here. Before anyone hops off, I'm going to show this one more time so we can get our feedback survey. Y'all, this is vital. This is life to us. And I know some of y'all are in a space where there's several of you. Did not mean to bring that up. Well, okay, we did not need to go about politics. There we go. There we go. Yay, I found it. So please, please, please give us your feedback survey. Everyone that's on here, take just 2 minutes to do this. This is so important to us. And we want to thank you, Lisa, for being here. This was awesome. It went by so fast. It really did. Thank you for everything. And I do want to, I know last year we had you in January and we asked you back in June as a halfway point. So maybe that's something we can look at down the road this year of coming back and doing a halfway point check-in of where you at on your shift. Did you stay
Absolutely.
courageous? You know, how is your courage looking? Are you staying courageous and brave and doing all these things? And how were your 3 identity words? How are you living into those? And I know I personally want to speak on behalf of everyone here at Momentum. That is our goal. We want to see lives changed for the better, because when leaders make a change, when women especially make a change, it is proven statistically how it impacts families, communities, our houses of faith, how it affects the world and politics and everything. So as we breathe and take care of ourselves and make sure that we are letting that shift happen, to do it with intentionality and from a heart of this is what I want to do to make the world a better place. So thank you, Lisa. Great way to start 2026. Looking forward to seeing how all this comes back. Anyone who has been watching today, shoot me an email and let me know how how you responded today and how you're going to live this out, and how, if you need some accountability, let me know. We'll be glad to work with you on that too. So have a very, very wonderful day, and we will see y'all next month. Lisa, thank you again. See y'all later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Momentum's virtual trainings are made possible with the support of Protective Life, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama, and America's Thrift. Find the full list of sponsors as well as additional resources for women leaders on our website at momentumleaders.org. Thanks for taking the time to invest in you, and remember to like, subscribe, and share our channel. We love reading thoughts and comments, so you can leave those for us here too. You can also connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn by searching at Momentum Leaders.